Are some guns just unsafe by design? And how do manufacturers get away with making these guns and marketing these guns if they are unsafe by design?
We are the superiorly armed beings.
Hey everybody, Yankee here. We've heard a lot recently about how some guns are just unsafe by design. How there's just no way to carry them safely no matter how careful you are because either the triggers are too light or there's no safety or a combination of things. And I want to actually kind of address that today by addressing a different question someone sent me in an email the other night during my live chat. They sent me a picture of a gun and it was a Bond Arms Derringer and it doesn't have a trigger guard. And they're like, how is this gun possibly safe? Especially if you cocked it and then carried it around cocked with the safety off with no trigger guard. Isn't that just an accident waiting to happen and shouldn't Bond be liable for that if it does go off? Well, no. That's kind of a silly thing to say. Now, first off, before we get into this, I'm going to say I love Bond Arms. I love Derringers. And I'm going to maybe be a little bit biased here. In fact, I'm actually talking to Bond Arms right now because I want to start doing handguns for heroes again. And I want to do it as making a special gun for the people who are chosen as our winners. So if you want to nominate someone for Handguns for Heroes, go on over to my website, TYMPpistolproject.com. You can nominate someone over there. So I'm actually talking to them about being able to get some of the guns they make, but without their engraving, so we can put our own engraving on it and make it into kind of a trophy for Handguns for Heroes. So I like them. I'm actually trying to work with them right now. I'm not trying to get a deal. I'll buy the guns outright. I don't mind paying full price for them as long as they don't have the engraving on the side. Hoping they'll get back with me soon. Gordon, if you're listening, get back with me soon. I want to get this rolling. But like I said, full disclosure, love them, even trying to work with them. But I want to talk about the actual gun. Now, this one actually has a trigger guard. And the picture they sent me, as you can see, has no trigger guard. But they're saying, how is that possibly safe? Well, it's perfectly safe as long as you use the gun in the manner or the way it was intended to be used. These guns are single action only. You have to cock that hammer before you can fire it. There's no way it's going to go off just like this. This gun like this is basically a paperweight. Until you cock that hammer, it's not dangerous at all. And if you do cock the hammer and engage the safety, it's a cross-bolt safety. That hammer's never going to touch that firing pin. If you do that, well, it wouldn't matter. You can hit that trigger all day long. It ain't going to go off. It's when you take the safety off that it could fire. Now, if you carry this the way it's intended, and they're intended to be carried with the hammer down, because let's face it, it's a cross-bolt safety. Even if you were carrying it cocked and locked, you wouldn't really have any advantage because of the way it is, and you got to push it in. If you're doing it one-handed, it's just easier to cock it and fire it than it is to try to push, change your grip and push the safety off. So you would just carry it, hammer down, cock it when you want to use it. That's what most Derringers are for. They put a safety on it to give you that option to carry it cocked and locked if you wanted to, but I just don't see any advantage to it. Even if you're using two hands, it's easier. You have to move your thumb, you adjust your grip to remove the safety when you could just cock the gun and fire it. So these guns are better carried hammer down. That's just a little extra something they add for someone who wants it. But the guns are clearly designed to be either carried hammer down or cocked and locked with the hammer, with the safety engaged, the crossbolt safety. So if you do that, the gun is absolutely safe. Now, if you carry it cocked without the safety on, with no trigger guard, well, then yeah, you're taking some risk. And even in that case, if you had it in a proper holster, probably would never have a problem. But if it was just like stuck in your pocket or something, that would be very dangerous. This gun just in your pocket without being cocked, you can carry that in your pocket all day if you wanted to. It's not dangerous. Like I said, chances of it getting cocked and then fired, we're talking astronomical chances there. So really wouldn't worry about it. In fact, I think these look a lot better without the trigger guard. I wish mine didn't have the trigger guard. You can take it off, but it would leave a little hole there. I don't want the little hole. So I leave mine on. But as I was saying, if you use the gun as it was intended, it's totally safe. Now, if you use it in a way it's not intended to be used, like with this gun, if you carried it cocked, not in a proper holster, and there's no trigger guard, and you don't engage the safety, well then yes, there's danger there. But that's not because of the gun. That's because of the user. That's user error. That's you doing something dangerous with something that wasn't intended to be used that way. That's the same with pretty much all guns. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some guns that are dangerous because they malfunction. That has happened before. There are guns that malfunction. They're tools. All tools sometimes malfunction. It's very rare because they're a very simple tool, but it can happen. But it's rare. And when the gun itself is not going off when it's not intended to, and if you pull the trigger, it should go off. So if the trigger gets pulled through your actions, that gun's not malfunctioning. It's working the way it's intended. You just used it incorrectly, and you used it recklessly. That's not the fault of the gun. If a gun isn't going off on its own when it's not intended, like if it's not going off from just shaking it or sitting it down or just not even touching it, if it like jumps off the table and shoots somebody or runs around shooting willy-nilly, well, that'd be a malfunction. That'd be a pretty bad malfunction there. But just misusing something or not taking enough caution while you're using it doesn't make something unsafe. That makes you unsafe. The unsafe part of this equation is you, because you're not taking the proper procedures to make sure the gun is being used properly. So that's human error. Unless the gun is going off on its own in a way it wasn't intended to do, through something other than pulling the trigger, or cocking the hammer and letting it go or something like that, then it's not the gun's fault. It's your fault. So that little Derringer with no trigger guard, since it is designed to be carried hammer down, it is single action only. It does have a safety if you want to cock the hammer back and keep it that way. Since it has all those things, it's totally safe. It's like, if a gun has a manual safety and you forget to put it on and it goes off when you stick it in the front of your pants because you're carrying appendix and it goes off, that wasn't the gun's fault. You didn't engage the safety. If you choose a gun that doesn't have a safety and then you actually have an ND while you're putting it in your holster appendix carry, still not the gun's fault. Because the gun wasn't intended to be used that way. You were either not using a proper holster, you weren't being careful when you holstered it, etc. The fault lies with you. If the gun went off because all the conditions were met to make it go off that you understood beforehand, that's your fault. So yes, that gun that they sent me the picture of is totally safe, as are most guns. Even if they're race guns. A race gun, something that's made for competition, has no safeties, has a super light trigger. Is it more dangerous to be careless with? Well, yes. But is the gun itself unsafe? No. You're just not safe enough or cautious enough to use it properly. And that's what a lot of people miss. There's very few unsafe guns out there on the market, and most of them aren't on the market anymore. The ones that are out there are pretty safe. The only problem is the people that use them are kind of careless a lot of the time.